Hello and welcome to Learning Music with Pat. When you're learning music, there's so much more to it than just having an instrument and knowing how to play certain notes and knowing how to read some timing and knowing when a certain fingering goes with a certain note. And that's what you normally get when you take lessons, and that's critically important. But there's also a lot more. Where are the range of where the music comes from? How high can it go? How low can it go? Where does your instrument fit in with where the keyboard is? What can the keyboard tell us that we can't know without looking at a keyboard? And so I wanted to show you things about music that's more than just fingering the notes, playing a song. And these are things that are very, very important, but I want you to get a bigger scope of what music is. So I have some charts which I've made. I never buy a chart. What I do is I make my own because I can't make them. I can't buy them for what I want them to be. And I showed this chart. I'm going to show it again at the end of the last session that we had, because this is almost a full-size keyboard. Basically, the notes are very small, the keys are very small, but it has almost the entire keyboard except for two notes at this end, which we wouldn't be dealing with, and there wasn't the space to put them in. So woodwind instruments, which is what I'm dealing with, start usually the lowest note they can play is that C. Now, the saxophone will go down to a B flat, so that's a little bit below. The clarinets can go down to about this range, but for the most part, flutes and instruments like flutes, this middle C is going to be the lowest note that they can play. So it's also called a low C because for the woodwinds it is the lowest note, but it's middle C because it's about halfway between the lower register and the higher register. It's right in between. If I am actually going to write it out, and I wrote it out here, I hope you'll be able to see it. It's a note with one line through it. That line is called a ledger line. And when you get up above, this high C has got two ledger lines. I don't know if that's visible or not. All of these extra lines, I didn't put stems in, but all of these extra lines that you see, they're all ledger lines. It's as if you had a line all the way across and the staff was more than 5 notes. But if you put the line all the way across, you'd have so many lines across that it would be impossible for you to actually read the music. So they use the ledger lines instead. This here has 5 ledger lines. Here's your middle C. It's the lowest note for most of the woodwinds. It's in between, halfway in between the treble clef, which is on top, and the bass clef, which is on the bottom. If you look over here, this is a symbol for the treble clef, and this would be all of these notes. This is a symbol for the bass clef, and this is all of these notes down, you see, and you have those ledger lines down just like you have these ledger lines up, but the staff can only hold so much, so you just keep adding ledger lines and ledger lines and ledger lines to get to the lowest notes or the highest notes that can be played. And then in the middle, from here to here, is a 2-octave range. An octave is 8 notes. It's actually 7 notes with a repeat of the first note, so 8 notes total. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. That's one whole octave. 8 notes if you include this, which is a repeat of this. And then you go once more, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, and that's your second octave. So that goes, the 2 octaves go from here, from the middle C, which I have put in gray so it's easily seen, and up here, that's your 2-octave range. This is where the woodwinds are. If I look on top, then we have the tonettes, flutophones, song flutes. They get just 1 octave from here to here. Now, sometimes you can squeeze out one more note or something like that, but basically they're 1-octave instruments. But when you get to the melodicas, the ocarinas, penny whistles, sasutos, and recorders, they go from here to here. That's the 2-octave range right here. That octave range right here is the same as I have down here. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, and then the second range, the second octave, right here. So this note, which has got 2 ledger lines on it, is the same as this note right here on the keyboard. And this note, which is the middle C, is the same as this note right here. The tonettes and the instruments that I mentioned before, the flutophones, the song flutes, will play that 1 octave range from here to here. And when you get to recorders, sasutos, and some of the penny whistles, some of the pan flutes, they'll go up to this range right here, so they can go from here to the lowest to here to the highest. So this high C is the same as this C, which is the same as this C right here. Now the flutes can go up 1 octave higher, and that's the C above high C. So you can get from C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. They can take this range here, so they are an octave higher than what this is. And then the pianos only, and maybe the harps, but basically the pianos only can get the last 8 notes, that they can't get it. But the flute is a very high-pitched instrument. You get lots and lots of notes, but it won't go above the C above high C. And the rest, we put an 8 VA, and in fact, I've got it written right here, 8 VA, and that means take this octave, which is the highest octave that the flute can play, and play it an octave higher than that. How are you going to read it? It's very difficult to read it, even with the 5 lines of ledger lines. It's very hard to read it. This is how music is arranged. Why it's arranged like this? Well, it makes sense mathematically, and it makes sense in terms of what you can hear. Now, the C is important, and it's always going to be the left of the 2 black notes. The black notes help you with your sharps and your flats, and the white notes are the regular notes. So you get your 2 notes here, the black ones, to the left is the C, and it's going to be the same all the way up with the keyboard. This is the C, and this is the C, and this is the C, and all the way down range. This is the C, this is the C, this is the C. Now, if you go 2 notes below the C, you're going to get an A. So the A is here. It's the first white note right to the left of those 3, the first of those 3. If you count these 3 black notes, 1, 2, 3, it's going to be to the left of that first black note. I think it's easier in teaching students just to go from the C, go to below it, and then if you follow the alphabet, it would be A, B, C, D, E, F, G. I have another chart here that I'm going to show. I think it'll just be easier for you to see it if I use this chart here. Okay, so here's the C. Now, this is not a full-range keyboard, so we'll do a little pretending here. This is toward the middle, so we'll consider this to be the middle C. Actually, there would be more notes to the right and to the left, but it doesn't matter. I don't have to show the whole keyboard every time I show a keyboard to get the message across. Here's the C. 2 below it is the A. These are the 3 black notes. The first space between the first and second black notes is going to be the A. The alphabet starts with an A. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And then what happens? It reverts right back to the A again. There's no note Z, or note Q, or note W. It doesn't exist. You go from A to G and then right back to the A again. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, that's the G, and right back here to the A again, and that's 2 notes below the C. It's always 2 notes below the C. Now, why is that? It's because of the way that we hear. we don't hear above a G. I mean, we can hear a G at different octaves. We can hear a high G. We can hear a low G. We can hear lower than low G. We can hear an extremely high G. But after you get to that G, the next note is always going to be an A. There's no note. There's no note S. There's no note R. You know, it goes from A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then right back to A again. And it's repeated all the way up and down the keyboard. And you need to know that. So the range of notes, if for a woodwind player, if this is the middle C, it's going to go to this, and it's going to go to this. That's going to be the range. But when you take the full scale of the keyboard, all of the notes, that ends up by being this middle C to this high C. This is a mid-range C. I call it a mid-range C, but this is a high C, and then this C is a C above high C. And the flutes can get that, but other instruments can't get there. I'm not sure about the stringed instruments. I'm not sure if the violin can do it. I'm not sure about the harps. Harps follow a keyboard very closely, so I think maybe the harps might be able to do it. But we're dealing with woodwinds, and for the woodwinds, we have to consider this is our range right here. So no matter what music you're playing, it's going to fit in with this range. The flutes, it has a range a little above, another above it. Because of the way that the flute is arranged, it does get one octave higher. So here's our range here for woodwinds. Middle C, mid-range C, and high C. That's about as high as most of the woodwinds can get. The flute can get up here, and then the other octave beyond that is going to be for the pianos. But for the most of the woodwinds, it's going to be right here. And I want to point that out to you because I think it's important that you know where you are when you're playing. And when I teach, I always use a keyboard. If there's none available, I bring a chart. Or I bring a melodica. Now with the melodica is like a keyboard, but you blow into it. If I'm going to start with the A, and then the higher A, that's the octave. So this A to this A, don't they sound like the same note? I'm playing both of them. And when you play them together, they sound like the same note, except one is higher than the other, and they are. Well, how can they be the same note if one is higher than the other? The vibrations are twice as fast for the high as the low. So if you cut the vibrations and make them twice as fast, it's going to play the same note, but it's going to play the note an octave higher. And I can do it all the way up and down the scale. This is one of my favorite melodicas. A lot of melodicas look like a regular keyboard, and I think next time I come in, I'll bring the other one. I've got a couple of melodicas. One that looks just like a keyboard. It's got the black notes, it's got the white notes, just exactly. This has the same thing, except it's arranged in a little different kind of way. You know, with the black notes on top, and there are white notes on the bottom, but they don't look like regular keyboard notes. You just play them by pressing the keys. It is a woodwind instrument. This is a Hohner, and it's made in Germany. It's a very nice instrument. I've had it for years, and it plays almost as well as it did when I became. It has reeds in it. You see, you can blow into it, and it's played by using reeds. This is a little different. The woodwinds do the same thing. Saxophones, clarinets, oboes, and bassoons all use reeds. The oboes and the bassoons use double reeds. There are two reeds, and they vibrate against each other. But as I explained in the last session, you get vibrations. You get the molecules moving, and they cause vibrations, and the vibrations determine what the tone of the instrument's going to be, what the tone of the notes are going to be, and then actually causes your eardrums to vibrate. And then you have the bones in the ear, in the middle ear, that cause it to go forth, and it goes into your brain, and your brain registers it as a tone. That's basically what happens physiologically. It goes from molecules, movement of the molecules, vibrations being created, the vibrations causing resonance of sound of different instruments, and then getting into the eardrums. The eardrums vibrate, and then you have the bones that carry it into the brain, and the brain interprets it. You know, when you see something, you basically, you see it like upside down, you know, with the optic nerve, and then your brain arranges it so you can see things right side up. It's interesting because the brain actually is the one that actually ultimately determines what you hear, what you see, what it looks like, what it hears like. Now, of course, that's different if you happen to have a hearing disorder or if you have a vision problem, but that's usually the way that it goes. So here you have it, middle C, mid-range C. Now, the tonettes, flutophones, and song flutes can play that. And some of the pan flutes are limited to 1 octave. And then here's the second octave right here, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And you have the melodicas, ocarinas, penny whistles, sassotos, recorders, in addition to the regular flutes, saxophones, clarinets, and so forth. They can get into that second octave range. Now, with a saxophone, and basically my main instrument is a saxophone, you can get up to the high F. And you can get it up, there are special keys on the side that you press, and you can get up that way. But you can't get up beyond, you really can't get up beyond much of here. This is way just for the flutes to do that. The flutes are the highest instruments. But then when you go down, the clarinets get down here, and other trombones and other bass instruments go down to the lower level. And if you're playing the piano, because you can play all of that on the piano, you use your left hand for that, and this is the bass notes for your left hand. So that's the range of the instruments that we have. Now, when you're writing notes, it's interesting because not all notes are the same in terms of how long you hold them, how long you play them. And so I'm going to show you another couple of charts here that we have time for. If you have notes, and I'll be showing this more, I'm just basically doing a review here. You have your whole note. The whole note is one, it's just like just an empty circle, and it's not darkened in. And usually that's for 4 beats long, but that depends upon the time signature and the key signature and the time signature, and I'll be going over that with you. I'm not going to do that today because I don't have the time for it. But if you were to split the whole note, you would get 2 halves. Here's 1/2 note, here's 1/2 note. 2 halves make a whole. This is the whole note. If you're to split the half notes, you get quarters. You can imagine in your own mind a pie, a whole pie. You cut it down the middle, you have halves. 2 halves make the whole. You cut it crosswise again, you get 4. So 4 quarters make a whole. 2 quarters make a half. So this note gets split in half and you have 2 quarters. This note gets split in half and you have 2 quarters. But you can take it further than that, because if you split a quarter note, what do you get? You get eighths. 2 eighths for 1 quarter. 2 eighths for 1 quarter, and then these two has been split also. 2 eighths, 1 quarter, 2 eighths, 1 quarter. So 8 eighth notes are going to equal 2 quarter notes, which are going to equal 2 half notes, or together 2 half notes. Combine them and you become a whole note. So what you need to know a little bit about in terms of reading music, and I'm not going to make this complicated at all, but music is like fractions. You read it like fractions, a half, a quarter, a third. I mean, there are various ways of writing the music. Now, if you're to take the 8th note, you're going to get 2 sixteenths. Every 8th note can be divided up into 2 sixteenths. And the sixteenths are although we're not going to get into it, can be divided up into 30-second notes. And then 30-second notes can be divided up into 64th notes. Now, only the most complicated music for the more skilled players can read 32nd and 64th notes, but they do exist. For us, for most people, we're going to go down through the 16th, and I'm not going to take you below that. I want to let you know that it exists, but I'm not going to be dealing with 32nd and 64th notes. That's going to be a little bit too complicated. Another way of showing that, and I got time enough for this, I guess. Another way of showing that, here's your whole note divided into two halves. Half note divided into two quarters. Quarter note divided into two eighths. Eighth note divided into two sixteenths. And if I wanted to take it further, a 16th note, which has two flags on it, split in half, will have three flags and become a 32nd note. And if I want to go further, that 32nd note with three flags split in half, and it becomes 64th notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is a body of the note, the circle. The lines that go up are the stems, and then when you get to these little little things sticking out on the side, those are the flags. And we go down to, for the most music, it'll go down to the 16th. This becomes more complicated. I just want you to see it so you understand about music, even though you won't actually be playing that. And then if I wanted to show it to you this way, which I could, the whole note into two halves, every half note into two quarters, every quarter into two eighths, every eighth into two sixteenths. And you have that progression: whole, half, quarters, and eighths, and sixteenths. And then if I were to go further, we'd get into the 32nd notes, and we would get into the 64th notes. But that's a little bit too complicated. I'm teaching you music. I'm not teaching you to be performance artists. I know I've had a number of people ask me to be on my show for music, and I have to tell them, this is not a performance show. You know, I'm not letting people on just to show how skilled they are and what their latest pieces are that they write. Although I'm interested in it, I don't show it. I'm teaching music, the basics of music, where it comes from, how do you play, what makes things work, how the sound works, how you can be the best musician possible, what you have to do to be the best musician possible. And when I get asked, what's the easiest instrument to play, I always ask the question, how well do you want to play it? Do you want something that you play really well, or just something where you should make some notes and have some fun with it? So music is complicated, but it also is a lot of fun. It makes use of mathematics, it makes use of tones, it makes use of a lot of things: how to tongue, how to slur, how to phrase, how to write music in different kinds of notes so you can get different rhythms. And so there's a lot to it, but it is a lot of fun to do it. And I've always enjoyed it, and I've been on the air for 10 years or so teaching music. I've taught a lot. So I'm going to close it here. We don't have much time left. We'll continue, and I'll show you some more basics next time. So please join me then.